As always, Indiana in the Morning is presented by First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM. All the way from New Jersey this morning, talking with Cormac O'Brien. The book is Secret Lives of the U.S. Presidents, Strange Stories and Shocking Trivia from Inside the White House. Let's say good morning.
Good morning to you.
Oh, it's good to have you on the air with us here today. This is the time of the year to talk about secret lives of the U.S. presidents because we've got all kinds of secrets happening in the White House and in Washington right now. It's an amazing atmosphere, but this is nothing new, presidential controversy, is it?
Oh, not at all. And it's a reminder, I think, this book, that presidents are people too, and we might as well entertain ourselves at their expense. I think it comes with the territory. If you're crazy enough to want to be president, then you're crazy enough to you're not going to mind being written about. And it's a long history of strange quirks and foibles.
I mean, this is really, really interesting reading.
Well, thank you. It was tough, and I'm an inveterate history buff, and one of the great things was that there was a lot of stuff I hadn't come across before, and it was fun to write about.
Well, we zero in on several of our favorite presidents all the time. It's almost like we immediately want to go to the Calvin Coolidge page because we know Calvin Coolidge was funny. We want to go to the Roosevelt page because he was a four-time president. You know, there are presidents that really stand out for us, but then in every single life, there's something amazing, and the Harry Truman page is just fabulous.
Oh, I'm glad you think so. Truman was, Truman was interesting for a lot of reasons. He's the only president of the 20th century to not have a college education. He was foul-mouthed. He was irascible. He had a notorious temper, and one of my favorite stories regarding that is, of course, the time that his daughter, who had an aspiring singing career, made her first performance in Washington, and the Washington Post music critic panned it. And and Truman reacted with predictable rage. And he had the White House had a habit with Margaret, his wife's agreement, that a lot of his outgoing mail would first be intercepted to prevent scandals. And on this one, because he would write terrible things to people, and on this occasion, he personally walked outside and mailed the letter himself. So it made it to I believe his name is Hume, and it was basically threatening to beat the bejeebers out of him. It was, let's see if I can. Someday I hope to meet you, it read. When that happens, you'll need a new nose, a lot of beefsteak for black eyes, and perhaps a supporter below. So this is the kind of man who's in the White House. And I don't think most of the people of the country knew that this sort of thing was going on, but that's until the letter was published in the Washington Times. And it is sort of like poke fun at the president. But yeah,
I'm not guessing Margaret really welcomed that sort of publicity either. One of the interesting things about the book to me is there are so many little tidbits where we find out about a particularly tender side to a president. And
yes.
The story of McKinley and his wife Ida and her battles with epilepsy, that touches your heart to read these things.
Oh, absolutely. Her first appearance as First Lady, she had a fit, a spasm. And so one of the first times the nation is seeing, or at least Washington society is seeing them together. You see this side of their marriage, which was a constant reminder of human frailty. And of course, at that moment, the president escorted her out until she was over it, and they came back. But he had a habit of draping a handkerchief over her head whenever, if they were out at a dinner or something like that, even a state dinner, if she started with some of her tremors, the darkness of the handkerchief would calm her down and help the moment to pass. And it looked odd to a lot of people who hadn't seen this before, a husband it almost seemed as if he was ashamed in some way, which of course he wasn't. It was to help her out, but it looked like he was covering something up.
That turns around the other way as well, particularly in the Woodrow Wilson presidency, when it is his wife that takes the role of taking care of him.
Absolutely, and this was unprecedented. It's unique in many ways because he had suffered I believe it's a pair of strokes during his whistle-stop tour to get his League of Nations plan approved, with the American people, so that he could take on the Senate, and it had exhausted him. And with these strokes, he is immobilized. To what degree, we don't know, because he was locked in the Lincoln bedroom. Nobody was allowed in, not even members of his cabinet, not even the vice president. She personally prevented them from knowing the extent of his condition. And it was possible to, one at the time could have been forgiven for wondering if the president were dead. So you have almost first government or executive government by First Lady. And the papers start shouting petticoat government and all this sort of thing. And eventually he recovers, and the moment passes. But there's nothing like that in the history of the presidency, in this country's history.
Cormac O'Brien is our guest. The book is Secret Lives of the U.S. President, Strange Stories and Shocking Trivia from Inside the White House. I'm interested in the gathering process for this, because this doesn't come together all at once.
No, that's where the hard work is. I'm a writer, and I love to write, and that's the easy part. So if you look, it's out there. Historians have been writing in their serious work. They've captured the lives of these men and women in their works, and if you look hard enough, it's there. It's just that it's buried beneath all of the treaties and the fights over legislation and Supreme Court picks and all that sort of thing. But it's out there, and I wanted to get the weird human dimension to this otherwise very powerful and some would say austere institution that is an immensely important part of our nation.
There's an interesting question I have for you as well, having to do with that whole process of gathering information, and that has to do with stories that have been told down through the years about this president or that president, and when you really get researching into it, you might find that those stories really don't have a whole lot of foundation. Tell me about that aspect of gathering this material.
Well, it starts right from the beginning when there's George Washington is fascinating to me, and I imagine to most people for so many reasons. And one of the reasons is that he really was something of a demigod in his own time. He was a legend in his own time for a lot of reasons. He looked the part, for one thing. He stood straight as a rail. He was 6'2". He was powerfully built. He was a swordsman, an accomplished dancer. He was an extraordinary equestrian. He was fearless. There were countless occasions during both the French and Indian War and the American War for Independence where he was right in the thick of things, erect in the saddle, bullets whizzing around him, and of course he won the revolution. So by the time he becomes president, there's this aura about him, and even though he had a great many detractors, even in his own cabinet, going forward, by the time he retires finally to a private life, the nation adores him in a way that this man could have been king. He's the only one of us, the only American who probably could have been king with people's consent if he had wanted to, if he had pushed. And so a guy named Parson Weems published right after Washington's death a book of legends about Washington that were all false, like the cherry tree and throwing a dollar coin across the Rappahannock and all this other stuff that never really happened, but that's what people wanted to hear because he had been virtually deified. And so this stuff remains. It endured down the ages, but it wasn't true.
With him and with
his real exploits were amazing enough.
Yeah, and with him and with so many others, that's what you find out by reading this book, Secret Lives of the U.S. President. Cormac O'Brien with us for just a few more moments, and as we consider this book and the amount of material that is out there, you probably have a pretty rich treasure trove that you could turn this into a lifetime passion.
Well, yeah, and that's why we did one on the First Ladies and also on the Civil War, because people, there is a hunger for learning about history out there, but a lot of people don't realize that it can be entertaining and weird. It doesn't all have to be remembering dates and names, and that's one of the reasons I like history anyway, because you scratch your head and think, wow, that really happened, and heck, that could have happened to me, or anything like that.
Well, it's just a beautifully written book and so much fun, and we appreciate your time with us here this morning on Indiana in the Morning.
Thank you for having me.